Coming up on the Mind Caddie.
You can do only so much one-to-one in coaching,
Yeah.
but there's a value for me to try to write things down, and there's a value for a much wider audience who then come into contact with this.
And presumably from that in a business context, and I'm sure it'll relate to sport, there's then the opportunity for spontaneity and creativity relative to what's going on right now, rather than projections of what could be and may be and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's actually the flow experience as a way of being. So it's no longer an experience that a self has. It's the realization that what this is, without the constant voiceover, is actually flow. Then what remains is the joy of, missing a shot or hitting a shot. It's both joyful.
Mind Caddie.
Hello, Kat. Thanks very much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
Yeah, no, I've come across your work a while ago, as we were talking previously, the Seeing No Self book, and there's the latest updated version that's out with Chris Niebauer's introduction. Always there's a backstory, Kat, with the book. Maybe if you fill the history in, that what brought you to the point of actually writing the book.
Well, it's a very long story, but maybe I'll start 5 years ago when I just the personal sort of insights around non-duality and what this means for freedom, really, and the removal of stress in life became what I wanted to do professionally. So it moved into my professional work, which was consulting and coaching, and then I moved into coaching around the question, what would a non-dual understanding change about leadership?
Yeah.
And so at first, around 5 years ago, I started coaching for that. And that led to writing books, because I found that you can do only so much one-to-one in coaching.
Yeah.
But there's a value for me to try to write things down. And there's a value for a much wider audience who then come into contact with this. So I started writing first about selfless leadership, and then more about the current science and philosophy that supports all of these insights. And now recently, I guess 1.5 years ago, I want to put into writing the very basic sort of instructions that allow people to see this for themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's all really nice, we will talk about it. You can read about this endlessly. There are videos to last you probably 3 lifetimes that you can watch, but it doesn't mean anything until you realize it in direct experience.
Yeah. Just before we get to non-duality and the book itself, it's interesting though you said about your time in business and selfless leadership. Explain that. How did that work? And what was the message with selfless leadership in business? Because a lot of people listening obviously run their own business, etc.
Yeah. It's the same message in the context of leadership, because that message is we believe that being a leader, for example, is a developmental, personal improvement issue, and that leadership is something the self, the person, can do well or badly, improve. And non-dual realization, the parts that are really important for leadership, for example, are there is no one who is actually making leadership happen. There is no one in charge. There's not like a small separate self inside the human determining your leadership. And if that is really seen directly, it takes the whole stress around, how good am I at this? Am I improving? How do I make myself improve? How do I get this right? It goes up in smoke. And when that does, there's the freedom to explore, well, what is really happening here?
Yeah.
What happens between humans?
Yeah.
What can we and then we can work with what is.
Yeah.
We can finally work with what is, instead of constantly being in our heads about, how am I doing? How are others seeing me?
Yeah.
How is this going?
Yeah. And presumably from that in a business context, and I'm sure it'll relate to sport, there's then the opportunity for spontaneity and creativity relative to what's going on right now, rather than projections of what could be and maybe and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's actually the flow experience as a way of being. So it's no longer an experience that a self has. It's the realization that what this is, without the constant voiceover, is actually flow.
And for those who are listening, who perhaps have never heard of non-duality, what it's a big subject to distill down, but in a nutshell, what would your sort of, not quite elevator pitch be, but sort of shortest explanation for somebody who's never heard the term?
Yeah. We are conditioned, or we're born and then raised culturally to believe that we are a doer self. So we are a person, a character inside the human, inside this body, and we have a serious amount of control over this thing we call our life.
Yeah.
So we can control thoughts, we can control what this body does, how it develops, how the life goes. And what non-duality basically shows is that that is a misidentification. It's an illusion but not an illusion in the sense of that it's not real. It's just a misunderstanding of how things really are. Because what is really true is that this is a human system, if you will, within a larger system. It's an organism just like any other organism. And that this construct that is created through cultural conditioning and biology, probably, this belief in a separate self who is in charge to some extent, is what causes stress and suffering, because it's not true. So we are putting in charge an entity that doesn't exist. And when you're in charge of put in charge of something, have responsibility for something over which you have no control, that's the recipe for burnout.
Right. So where does sort of goals and dreams and aspirations, let's say within sport, fit into that philosophy?
They are also, they're definitely there.
Yeah.
And they're also organic and spontaneous and maybe pursued or not.
Right.
But the non-dual view of that shows directly that we don't know where they come from. We don't know if we will develop ambition or not. We do not know if we will have what it takes to pursue it. So it really is about taking away that personal shame, blame, and guilt around these things, but not that everything disappears, not that nothing is ever done anymore, or that there is no ambition or goals, but simply that whether those are achieved or not and how they are achieved is neither your fault nor your achievement.
So where does this personal responsibility come in, or not, within this?
Well, things have consequences.
Yeah.
You know, in reality, it's like the laws of gravity. You know, you jump off a high building, you die.
Yeah.
There is such a thing and there is such a thing as actions of the human and consequences of those actions. If I go out and murder a bunch of people,
There's
there will
consequences.
be consequences.
Yeah.
So this doesn't deny the reality of human interaction, but the knowing, or the assumption that it is our free will and that we determine what the human will do, that is seen through. That is just seen to be false. And for example, very concretely, you can see this just by realizing that you do not know what the next thought will be. And then we have all these thoughts and all these hacks and all these, you know, especially sports and all the visualizations and the mind games and the optimization, which, yes, we're not saying those don't happen and that those don't work. Just that it is not your achievement to be interested in these things and to make them work. They unfold.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is that when that stress is removed of, oh, I need to make this happen, I need to improve myself and make this occur, then we can, just as in the leadership, we can work with what is.
Yeah.
I can work with the ambition that naturally unfolds through this human.
And the fascinating thing with that appeals to me so much is that I probably think back to the early days of coaching and reading about psychology and, you know, CBT and all things like that. People seem to be, and probably more so than ever now, seem to be spending so much time trying to control the thoughts, trying to control their experiences. And
Yeah.
it becomes, and I see it a lot these days. It's almost like people are at war with the brain, really, because they're taking the thoughts so seriously. And
Yes.
and this kind of idea that I have to be in a perfect state to give a presentation or win a golf tournament or whatever. When it's an as you say, it's an ever changing, constant flux of thoughts and feelings and sensations. Paradoxically, my experience is working with when you can get them to understand that, things seem to settle down.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's actually in flow is really the state of, or it's not even a state, it's no mind. It's not in the sense of there are no thoughts or there is no mind. It's just being able to be what is more expansive than that.
Mm.
So it's really ignoring the mind.
Mm.
And all of culture, all of society, especially the last, I don't know, couple of decades, have been about, no, it's about mind control.
Yes. Yes.
Mind optimization, mind hacks, mindset, mind do this, do the other thing. And there's always a new flavor of that, or a new technique to learn. And then that's the next thing, and the next book we read, and the next hack we try to learn. But the reason we keep needing new versions of that is because they just don't work.
Yeah.
But what does work, and what we're really looking for, is freedom from the mind.
Yeah. Which sport potentially is a great laboratory to explore that, isn't it? If there's a point where you step off and interact with the golf course, the snooker table, the football pitch, whatever it may be. I think for me, when I see this with players, is that all of a sudden you become more in tune with the golf course, because the golf course is always telling you what to do. It's always speaking to you. It's giving you puzzles to solve. But when we're so much in our head, we actually don't read those puzzles. We don't interact with those puzzles, and we can't be spontaneous on any given day then.
Yeah, you're veiling access to the direct experience of the golf course.
Yeah.
So your mind is in the way, and the difficult thing about it is even the mind now, for example, trying to figure out how to let go of itself will be the next thing that's in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really, I think one of the keys to this is experimenting with the hypothesis that maybe truly the mind is useless.
Well, yeah.
And it's willing to go there. I mean, that's what I like about non-duality in general and direct inquiry, like what I have in my book. It's never asking you to believe something or to, learn a new hack or something like that. It's asking you to investigate directly. So you would be on the golf course and you would see what happens when you decide or investigate what happens when I just ignore thinking, including the thinking about not thinking. What if I can just expand, unhook attention from whatever the stuff in here, ideas, fantasies, needs, desires, thoughts, and I can just expand into being. What if I can just be here? I don't know what anything means. I don't know what golf is. I don't know who I am. I don't know what, what
don't
birds
know what
are.
today's going to bring.
I don't have no idea what today is going to bring. And in that sense, I don't care, because I simply don't know. So I can ignore it, really ignoring in the sense of not forever.
Sorry to jump in on that, because I think it's such an important point. I think in sport especially, there's so much stress and anxiety around the notion of trying to control today with a bunch of stuff that may or may not have worked in the past. And, it sounds almost simplistic, but a lot of players I've shared this with, the premise of let's see what happens is actually a very powerful way to experience sport, to experience golf. And yet almost everything in everybody's life is trying to predict what's going to happen, from the stock market to the weather to whatever. And it's let's see what happens. It is a very freeing premise to play the game, any game from, isn't it?
Yeah. And what happens is that the mind takes that on as the next objective.
Yeah.
So I'm going to now figure out how to let me see what happens. And that's, I think, where this really investigating no self comes in, because that we need the direct experience of not being the doer, not having control. And the mind is scared of that, right? Because as you just said, everything is about control, trying to control. And so it's not just, I found that for most people, let's see what happens doesn't work.
Right.
It just, the mind won't, the self, which is the mind, our whole psychology, simply won't let us go there. Or we take it on as another mind control trick.
Yeah.
So it's really, really crucial to investigate, again, in direct experience, am I actually making things happen? Are there actually areas of my life where I can predict, where I can control? For example, a big one is, well, I can decide to go to the golf course and decide that for today, I'm going to just see what happens. Is that true? Or is it just that this idea and this intention spontaneously comes up? Because sometimes I want it to come up and it doesn't. Sometimes I wish it would go away and it's there. So, but again, not just because we're discussing it here or it sounds like a cool thing to do, which it is, but because we really investigate that as a sort of in the laboratory of direct experience and find out that that is how things actually are, then we're even free from the mind trying to make that into the next control hack.
I think there's there obviously is a direct link to learning as well, in the sense that the movement of the golf swing or the tennis serve or whatever it may be when you're playing an individual sport. Again, I think so many people fall into the trap of trying to control that movement so precisely, and again, paradoxically, letting go as the best phrase I can come up with tends to produce better results. But again, it's this subtle dance of, we're not saying just do anything and swing on one leg or one hand or whatever. It's allowing, I think, on any individual day, again, having the freedom to sort of say, okay, well, what have I got today? What's showing up today? As opposed to a set of formula trying to maintain and control your experience.
Yeah, and what shows up today might be working very technically on a minute detail of my swing or my serve.
Yeah.
So it's not that this is very difficult to explain in words, and it's always misheard. So it's heard as, oh, well, I will just do nothing then. I'll just show up and see what happens, and I won't improve. But that's not what this is saying. This is saying, the idea that there is a separate entity in control of what needs to happen, that is the illusion. And seeing through that gives us the freedom to show up to what is, which may be enormously detailed technical work.
Yeah. Or on another day, it may be very little at all in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is not up to us. And if we fight that, if we continue to fight that, we can never work in this. We never access what is. We're just always somewhere else. We're in a mental version. We're in the map instead of in the territory.
I've talked about this before. I'm sure you'll relate to it from business. That giving presentations is a good example, really. That you have to present about whatever the subject is, and there may be some kind of freedom. There may be some kind of framework in the background of what you're not going to just talk about anything. There is a subject to talk about. But being willing to step off from death by PowerPoint, as in you've got 53 slides to go through one after another. I've found that there's so many times when afterwards you think, well, where did that phrase come from? Or where did that story emerge from? And it's a leap of faith to do it in the first place, because we want to control our experience, especially in front of a lot of people. But again, it's a very liberating thing to just at least explore that freedom.
There's that, and there's the even more expanded view that when the character that is conditioned onto this body mind is the type who does death by PowerPoint and who prepares minutely, then that too is just what is. But it's counterintuitive, because seeing that then usually leads to the freedom of, okay, I don't need to try to control
Right.
that in that way.
Right.
But again, I'm saying this because I've seen it so often. People mishear this as, okay, now I need to go and do my presentations without prep. And that's not what we're saying.
No.
It's seeing that whether you do that or not is not up to you.
Yeah. And again, there's the liberation within that. What would your thoughts then be in terms of sport? That we perceive that we have an opponent. We perceive that we have the golf course that is trying to trick us. What would be a non-dual approach to other teams, interaction with others within the game? That yes, there is a desire to win that game, but what would be the bigger picture of that from a non-dual perspective?
Well, it is resting, for lack of a better word, knowing our simple presence as that. So we see all these, we notice everything going on. There's the input, the output, the reaction, and there is all the mind content and the self trying to control. All of that is going on, but we know ourselves as the presence that knows that all, that knows all of that. So that is present to whatever is unfolding. And so it's a kind of also zooming out from this limited contraction of, oh, I'm here against the golf course or against the others. But it's knowing we have the capability to know all of that all at once, because that's what we really are. What knows everything, what is present to everything. And that counterintuitively allows the unfolding of the apparent individual to be without resistance.
Yeah.
So it removes the resistance from this, what I call the selfing loop. So there's this loop of, I'm here, I need to control, I need to get this done, I need to fix this, I need to win, whatever. But also the opposite, I need to let go, I need to be here, I need to expand. Those are just as much part of the selfing loop.
Right.
And so right now, for example, while we're having this conversation, if for listeners, for example, it is possible to unhook the narrow focus on just the sound, but to be also aware of everything else, to expand that awareness into everything that is going on. It's sort of a as in flow, as in the flow state. But that already shows that there is so much more to be present to than just this narrow focus of attention. And that's available to us in any moment because it's always the case.
Yeah. I know Chris, when I spoke to him, he came up with a great line, and he basically said that we could be very effective in life if we just used our thinking mind for about half an hour a day. And you said about realizing that our thinking mind is largely useless, and realizing this thing that's generating these thoughts about the past and projecting into the future is wired up from millions of years ago, focused on survival, things like that. It's then changing, not so much changing your thoughts, it's completely changing your relationship to your thoughts.
Yeah, and the key to that is seeing that you don't control them.
Yes.
Because otherwise, no mind, or not using the mind, becomes the next mind technique, and that is so crucial. I mean, I think I've already said it 3 times, but I'm saying it again, because that really is the essence. It is knowing that the mind is, and that thinking mind is a conditioned, programmed part of how we are as humans in the world. But we are free from that when we can see it in operation. So it's not that we free it by trying to control it into no mind, or to only using it only half an hour a day, because that's unachievable. Or if it is, it isn't your achievement. It spontaneously happens. But seeing the uselessness of the mind for what we're trying to achieve, that is where the power lies. Because once you really, really see that directly, you don't have to use any hacks anymore.
No.
It's just you don't listen. To me, it's very much like, imagine you would be having constant thoughts about Harry Potter. It's like, oh, Harry Potter needs to work on his swing, or needs to. you know this is totally irrelevant information because the guy's not here. He's a fictional character.
Yeah.
And realizing directly that the thoughts about yourself are exactly the same. They are also about a fictional character, a fictional self, a fictional doer. That is the freeing part. Because now you don't have to listen. If I have thoughts here going, oh, cat this, cat that, cat the other thing, they are not interesting anymore.
No.
So they don't hook the attention because they're about a fictional character.
So do you think, looking at it, whether it's sport or life in general, and it's probably a bit of a loaded question, but I welcome your thoughts on it, that a lot of psychology, as in trying to control thoughts, is actually far more damaging than beneficial?
I'm not sure if it's, I would say, damaging, because as long as that is the framework you're operating within, psychology can seem to be helpful.
Yeah.
And many things do provide, then within that context, provide relief. And ease and calm and concentration and all these things. So I wouldn't say, as all things, they can be damaging or beneficial.
Yeah.
But it's not freeing. And to me, these types of insights and non-duality is about freedom. It's about freedom from the contraction and the limitation of I am a separate someone who needs to fix my life or fix my sport or fix whatever it is, my leadership.
Yeah.
And it is that causes so much stress, so much anxiety, so much constant worry in some form, even if it's positive. Even if it's, I'm going to be the best player in the world, or I'm going to, that too is a form of stress.
It's still busy in your mind when all that's going on, isn't it?
Yes, and it's still a resisting what is. And peace, freedom, and the joy of life are found in this, just as it is. It's not found in the mind's resistance to what is. I think we can all sort of get that. And we are at our happiest when we are flowing with whatever is.
Yeah.
We know that as well. But then the mind tries to fix us. How can I get that state? How do I get there? How do I
do that every day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why finding the freedom of this just as a direct experience, because I've seen that that's how it works. I've seen how the mind tricks me into taking me away from that over and over and over.
Yeah.
Then what remains is the joy of, missing a shot or hitting a shot. It's both joyful.
Yeah. It's an experience.
Yeah. It's what is.
Yeah.
And what is incredible. We're just never experiencing it because we're off in our minds.
Yeah. And again, relating it to golf, when there's that experiencing of the movement, there can be an inherent joy in moving your body in a certain way, whether it's a golf swing or a tennis serve or whatever. When there's less direct control of that, it's just the movement for its own sake can become a really pleasurable thing.
Yeah. So it's literally it's seeing that there is no control. And so it's the letting go of whatever is happening. Of trying to make something happen. And then whatever happens is what happens.
Yeah. And the fact that you'll be okay whatever happens.
Yes. And that what happens can look like extreme control. So I don't know. I've never really dug into that, but the Zen approach to the art of archery and the Zen of archery, and that's really also coming very close to that concept, except that this, here it's not a concept to learn or it's something to practice, but it's a seeing of that is actually how things already are. We're just telling a different story about how they are.
Well, the book, we said at the beginning, Seeing No Self, is a bunch of experiences and explorations and direct experience. I think I saw something, a post that you did the other day that on your newsletter, that you talked about your newsletter started with this particular exploration, and you 5-6 years later on it, and you said it was the most important thing. So maybe if you just go into a bit of detail on that, about what you believe the most important element to begin this exploration is.
Yeah, it's this, what I briefly mentioned with the unfocusing of attention. So we are almost always attending to or focused on the content of experience. So that can be the mind, but it can also be whatever is going on, sensations, interactions like this one, thoughts, ideas, fantasies. But what we're never attending to is what is aware of that. And if I ask right now, so what is hearing, what knows this podcast, what is listening? And I ask what is listening, not who is listening, because who takes us to the self, to the character, but what is listening right now? If you let that question sort of echo, it takes you into this expansion. And that can be asked on the golf course. That can be asked, in the middle of any activity. The question can arise, what knows this? What is aware? And noticing that over time, again and again, if you're lucky, but for most people, you become interested in that. It becomes a kind of almost love affair, Oh, what is it really that is aware? Yeah, the noticing. The noticing brings this expansion, and you get a flavor of the peace and the joy and the freedom that's available to us in the middle of stress. Right? You're sitting there stressing over your shot, and what is aware? And there's this release and expansion, and that starts to do itself. So that's why for me that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of this. It's the one most important piece of advice is whenever it occurs to you to do so, and maybe because of this podcast you will start to become interested in this, the middle of whatever is going on, what is aware of what's going on? What knows that? And to just notice that, to just look there.
Just be there.
Yeah, be there. And the mind doesn't really compute, it's like, what does that mean? Don't worry about that. Just in whatever way it makes sense in the moment, just try and have a look. Try to notice. And that over time really is the most important thing.
Because that doesn't change, does it?
No, exactly. That's one of the many things you start to see. But I've become less free in what I say about that, because the more we speak about what you find, the more it becomes the next
tip,
mind, goal. Oh, I need to see this and this and that, and I'm not seeing it. It's not working. So just as an open exploration, see what you find. Notice what is aware.
So for yourself, Kat, in your own life, how is your day-to-day experience of life different now than it perhaps was 5-10 years ago, before some of these inquiries?
Well, the complete set of thoughts worrying about me, who I am, how I'm doing, how other people see me, am I succeeding, am I getting things under control, they're gone.
Right.
So I remember in my 30s, 20s, much of my 40s as well, this was 80% of my day, worrying about myself.
Right.
And that just frees up so much time, so much capability to be with other things. So that's an incredible relief in daily life. And then there's the joy of sharing this. So more and more coming to the foreground is this is incredible. It's available to anyone. And look at where we are as a culture, as as society. We're focused on an illusion, on shoring up and developing and promoting and defending an entity, a character that is not really there. So more and more my days look like speaking about this, sharing about it, and also just being it. Which is actually the most beautiful thing.
And it may be a sort of trite question, but I'll ask it anyway. what is your experience now like of the so-called, I know there's no ordinary, but the so-called ordinary things, whether it be a conversation or a meal or a walk or whatever? No, it's a difficult question perhaps to answer, but would you sense a big difference between how that is for you now compared to how it would have been previously?
No, I find that difficult always to describe because the experience doesn't change. I mean, I experience life as I did before, as a human,
Yeah.
whatever that means. So with this body and a mind, and there are many, many thoughts. So it's not like, there's no real difference in that. The difference is I always have to explain it in the negative. So what's no longer there? What's no longer there is that feeling of being contracted and stuck and that my life is at stake, and
Yes.
I need to fix it.
Yeah.
And I need to get this right. And there's just no stress around that. So it's, there's this, I think, famous Krishnamurti lens that whatever happens, I don't mind.
Yep.
And it's sort of like that because it's not really true. I do mind what happens. But I don't mind that I mind. So,
So again, it's just it's a subtle but different relationship to your thoughts, that isn't it?
yeah, I think that's the biggest aspect. And it's this thing that's so difficult to explain is the freedom of that. So you don't really know how constricted and stressful life feels until it's like you're constantly wearing shoes that are a size too small. And suddenly you realize you can take them off. That's how it feels.
So I know you don't play golf. You said your husband plays snooker and he's a good snooker player, but this would be an interesting one. If you were to sort of coach somebody the next time they play golf, what would be something that they could explore relative to our conversation?
I would recommend the same thing. So to whenever it occurs to them, to notice what is aware of the player, of the game, of whatever is going on, to sort of expand into that, what knows this? What is aware of this? Expand into that being. And to try to get a taste for it, for the freedom in that, for the expansion of it, and see if they like it.
And within that, there may be anxiety, nervousness, positive thoughts, negative thoughts, whatever.
Whatever is going on, to ask, to turn around almost, to turn the attention around, to take it off whatever is going on, and to put the attention on, well, wait a minute, what is knowing that right now? What is aware of that? And just to touch it lightly. And we can use different words for that. We can say it is a form of surrender to what is, or let go, or accept everything as it is. But the mind hears that as something to do.
Yes. Yeah.
It's, oh, okay, I'm going to let go here. I'm going to fix this.
Yeah.
And that's not what this is pointing to. So I found that I tried that for many, many, many years. That just leads to more constriction. But so to anyone wanting to taste this, it is really, you're in the middle of whatever you're doing, what you're trying to fix, what you're trying to be, and then you notice what is already being, what is already there, and it should feel like an expansion. Then okay, this is what I'm looking for, this larger than my little body mind here.
Tiny story.
Yeah.
Kat, wonderful book that you've written. Tell people more about it. I know, as we said at the beginning, there's the new version with Chris's forward to it. So just explain about, obviously, Amazon and things like that. But just finish off with about the book or books.
Yeah, so this is absolutely the one book I would recommend to everyone. I mean, I've written about leadership and about the science, and Chris Niebauer's work, for example, also is in the other book, Beyond Illusion. But Seeing No Self is my version of making this as accessible as possible, not because you're being given a new belief system or a new, set of mental instructions, but really as an exploration. So for people who are in sports, they should know, because it's actually getting on the course and doing the thing and not reading the manual. So this is like, my book asks you to investigate and explore the direct experience of all these things we've talked about, instead of being an instruction manual, or a description of what you will find. And to me, over all these years of working with individuals, with trying to communicate this, that is the most useful thing we can do, is to find out for ourselves. So it's basically, this book is a set of questions, bullet points, inquiries. And that can seem, very dry. But if you actually have the motivation, which is not up to you, if you do develop the motivation to explore this is what will help you see it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks ever so much for your time, Kat. I do appreciate it. It's been a fascinating conversation. I think very, very, very helpful for people.
Thank you. I hope it is helpful.
Mind Caddie.